Dr. Xylara Keth'ven was the galaxy's premier trauma specialist. 3 centuries of experience, a 99.7% success rate, and awards from 7 different stellar confederations. None of that mattered when Ryan Mitchell sat down in her office and smiled that distinctly human smile. The Harmony Medical Station orbited the neutral world of Kepler 442c, its pristine white corridors humming with the quiet efficiency of galactic healthcare at its finest. The station served as a processing center for newly contacted species, helping them adjust to life in the broader galactic community. It was here that beings from primitive worlds learned to cope with the psychological shock of discovering they weren't alone in the universe. Dr. Xylara's office reflected her status as the station's chief psychological officer. The walls displayed her numerous certifications and commendations, each one representing years of study into the minds of dozens of different species. Her desk, crafted from genuine Andorian crystal, held the latest in therapeutic technology alongside ancient meditation artifacts from 17 different worlds. At 2.3 meters tall, with 4 graceful arms and skin that shifted color based on her emotional state, Xylara was an impressive figure. Her species, the Keth'ven, had evolved sophisticated empathic abilities that made them natural healers. She could literally feel the pain of her patients, understanding their trauma on a level that transcended language or culture. Today's patient file lay open on her desk. Ryan Mitchell, human, age 32, rescued from Earth. Classification, Deathworld, Class 12. The summary was brief, and in Xylara's professional opinion, typical for a primitive species suddenly exposed to galactic civilization. Another simple case, she murmured to herself, her skin displaying the calm blue-green of professional confidence. Post-contact adjustment disorder with possible reality dissociation. Standard treatment protocols should have him integrated within a month. Her assistant, a nervous Regalian named Pip, poked his head through the office door. "Doctor, the human is here. Should I send him in?" "Of course, Pip. Why wouldn't you?" Pip's scales shifted to an anxious yellow. "It's just, the rescue team's report mentioned some unusual behaviors, and the medical staff have been talking about—" "Pip," Xylara interrupted gently, "I've treated beings who've survived planetary wars, cosmic horror encounters, and reality-breaking experiments. I'm quite certain I can handle one confused human." What walked through her door next challenged that certainty immediately. Ryan Mitchell was smaller than she'd expected. Humans averaged about 1.8 meters according to the files, but this one barely reached 1.75. He had dark hair that looked like it had been cut with something other than proper grooming tools, skin bronzed by what must have been exposure to his planet's harsh star, and eyes that Xylara's empathic senses recoiled slightly. Those eyes held depths she wasn't prepared for, not the shallow trauma she was used to treating, but something vast and complex, like staring into the event horizon of experiences she couldn't immediately categorize. "Dr. Xylara?" Ryan's voice was pleasant, carrying a slight accent that the universal translator couldn't quite smooth out. "I'm Ryan Mitchell. I understand you wanted to see me." He sat down in the patient chair without being asked, but not in the defeated slouch she expected from trauma victims. Instead, he settled back with the easy confidence of someone perfectly comfortable in their own skin. "Yes, Mr. Mitchell, I'm here to help you process your recent changes in circumstances. I understand being rescued from a death world and learning about galactic civilization can be quite overwhelming." Ryan tilted his head slightly. "Overwhelming? Not really. I mean, it's definitely different, but you adapt, you know." Xylara made a note on her tablet, classic deflection and minimization. "Mr. Mitchell, according to your file, you were living in what our survey teams classified as a survival situation for most of your adult life. Combat zones, resource scarcity, constant threat assessment. That kind of chronic stress can cause lasting psychological damage." "Oh, that." Ryan's smile was genuine, and somehow that made it more unsettling. "Yeah, that was just Tuesday. Well, most days really, but that's life on Earth." "Just Tuesday," Xylara repeated, her skin shifting to a slightly more yellow hue. "Mr. Mitchell, I need you to understand that what you experienced on your world isn't normal. The constant danger, the violence, the struggle for basic survival, these things leave marks on the psyche." "Doc, can I ask you something?" "Of course. What's the most dangerous animal on your home world?" Xylara blinked her large, dark eyes. "I'm sorry?" "Your home world. What's the biggest predator? The thing that would eat you if you weren't careful?" "Well, the Keth'ven evolved past such concerns millennia ago. Our world has been civilized for thousands of years. I suppose there are some large herbivores in the nature preserves that might be startled into defensive behavior, but herbivores, Ryan nodded thoughtfully. That's nice. On Earth, we have something called a drop bear. A drop bear? Well, that's what Australians call them as a joke. They're actually koalas, but the point is, even our cute, cuddly tree animals can mess you up if they're having a bad day. And that's not even getting into the spiders. Xylara's empathic senses were picking up something odd. Ryan wasn't displaying any of the usual trauma responses. No elevated stress, no suppressed memories clawing at the edges of his consciousness. Instead, there was a strange kind of nostalgia mixed with what felt like amusement. Mr. Mitchell, I think you might be minimizing— Oh, I haven't even started yet, Ryan interrupted cheerfully. See, spiders are actually pretty manageable once you know what you're dealing with. It's the snakes that get interesting. We've got one called the inland taipan. One bite has enough venom to kill 100 grown men. Xylara's skin was definitely shifting toward yellow now. 100 men? Give or take. But here's the thing. That's not even our most dangerous snake. That would be the coastal taipan, or maybe the death adder. Depends on whether you're measuring by venom potency or aggression level. Death adder? Yeah, they're actually pretty cool. They wiggle their tails to look like worms. Then when something comes to investigate, Ryan made a quick striking motion with his hand. Gotcha. The yellow in Xylara's skin was becoming more pronounced. Her empathic abilities were telling her that Ryan was being completely honest, and that somehow made it worse. Mr. Mitchell, surely your people have developed technologies to deal with these dangerous creatures? Ryan laughed, and the sound was warm and genuinely amused. Doc, we don't deal with them. We live with them. They were there first. Besides, the animals aren't really the dangerous part. They're not? Nah, the planet itself is what tries to kill you. Take Australia again. That's a continent, by the way, about the size of 3 or 4 average planets in the Galactic database. Xylara's hands had begun to tremble slightly as she took notes. So you've got your basic desert that can hit 50 degrees Celsius in the shade, assuming you can find shade. You've got cyclones that can level cities, floods that can wash away everything you've ever built, and drought that can last for years. Surely your people shelter in underground facilities during such events. Some do, but most of us just get on with it. You board up the windows when the cyclone's coming, you sandbag when the floods hit, and you ration water when the drought comes. What else are you going to do? Xylara's skin was now a definite yellow with streaks of orange. What else are you going to do? She repeated faintly. Right, I mean, it's home. You can't just give up because the weather's trying to kill you. The weather is trying to kill you. Well, yeah, not personally, mind you. It's not like the clouds wake up thinking, let's get Ryan today. It's just, that's what weather does on Earth. Sometimes it's nice, sometimes it tries to flash fry you or drown you or blow you into the next time zone. Dr. Xylara was beginning to understand why the rescue team's report had been so concerning. Mr. Mitchell, let's talk about your living situation before the rescue. You mentioned combat zones? Oh, that. Ryan's expression grew slightly more serious. Yeah, I was military for a while. Did a few tours in some interesting places. Interesting places? Well, there was Afghanistan. That's a country on Earth where the geography itself is hostile. Mountains that can kill you, weather that swings from freezing to boiling, and local wildlife that includes things like the Afghan wolf and the Asiatic black bear. And the combat? Ryan was quiet for a moment, and for the first time, Xylara thought she was getting somewhere. Finally, she was seeing some normal trauma responses. The combat was the easy part, Ryan said finally. Xylara's pen stopped moving. The easy part? Yeah. See, humans, we're predictable. You learn their patterns, their tactics, their motivations, and you can anticipate what they'll do. But try predicting when a flash flood is going to come roaring down a valley, or when the ground is going to shift in a landslide, or when the temperature is going to drop 40 degrees in 6 hours. You're saying natural disasters were more challenging than armed conflict? More challenging than the humans, yeah. Though there was this one time, Ryan paused, seeming to consider something. You know what? Maybe that's getting a bit intense for a first session. Xylara's skin was now displaying bands of orange and red. No, please, continue. Well, we were doing a humanitarian mission after an earthquake, magnitude 7.8, which is, well, it's the kind of thing that can level a city. We were pulling survivors out of the rubble when we got word that there might be aftershocks. Aftershocks? Secondary earthquakes. They happen after the big one. Sometimes they're worse than the original. And you continued working? Of course, people were trapped. You don't just leave them because the ground might shake again. Xylara was beginning to feel something she hadn't experienced in decades of practice, genuine fear for her patient's psychological well-being, but not in the way she'd expected. Mr. Mitchell, I need to ask you directly. Do you consider your life on Earth to have been traumatic? Ryan considered this seriously. Traumatic? I don't know. I mean, it was life. Some days were harder than others. Some years were harder than others, but that's just how it goes. Some years were harder than others, she repeated. Sure, like the year my hometown got hit by 3 hurricanes in 6 months. That was a rough one. Or the summer when the wildfires came through and we had to evacuate twice. Wildfires. Yeah, it happens when it gets too hot and dry. The whole landscape just catches fire. You can see the smoke from hundreds of kilometers away, and the air tastes like burning for weeks. And you evacuated. Well, the second time we evacuated, the first time we stayed to help fight it. You fought a wildfire? Sure. I mean, not just me. The whole community came together. You dig fire breaks, you wet down the roofs, you use controlled burns to starve it of fuel. It's actually pretty amazing what people can do when they work together. Xylara's skin was now cycling through colors she didn't have names for. Her empathic senses were being overwhelmed by the casual way Ryan discussed scenarios that would have required emergency psychological intervention for most species. Aftershocks? Secondary earthquakes. They happen after the big one. Sometimes they're worse than the original. And you continued working? Of course. People were trapped. You don't just leave them because the ground might shake again. Xylara was beginning to feel something she hadn't experienced in decades of practice. Genuine fear for her patient's psychological well-being, but not in the way she'd expected. Mr. Mitchell, I need to ask you directly. Do you consider your life on Earth to have been traumatic? Ryan considered this seriously. Traumatic? I don't know. I mean, it was life. Some days were harder than others. Some years were harder than others, but that's just how it goes. Some years were harder than others, she repeated. Sure. Like the year my hometown got hit by 3 hurricanes in 6 months. That was a rough one. Or the summer when the wildfires came through and we had to evacuate twice. Wildfires. Yeah, it happens when it gets too hot and dry. The whole landscape just catches fire. You can see the smoke from hundreds of kilometers away, and the air tastes like burning for weeks. And you evacuated. Well, the second time we evacuated. The first time we stayed to help fight it. You fought a wildfire? Sure. I mean, not just me. The whole community came together. You dig fire breaks, you wet down the roofs, you use controlled burns to starve it of fuel. It's actually pretty amazing what people can do when they work together. Xylara's skin was now cycling through colors she didn't have names for. Her empathic senses were being overwhelmed by the casual way Ryan discussed scenarios that would have required emergency psychological intervention for most species. Mr. Mitchell, I need to understand something. When you describe these events, the natural disasters, the combat, the constant threat of death, I'm not sensing any of the normal trauma responses. No suppressed memories, no emotional numbing, no hypervigilance. Should I have those? Most beings would, yes. The experiences you're describing would cause lasting psychological damage to virtually any known species. Ryan nodded thoughtfully. That's interesting. But here's the thing, Doc. On Earth, if you spent all your time being traumatized by every little thing that could kill you, you'd never get anything done. Every little thing? Well, yeah, I haven't even told you about the box jellyfish yet. I'm almost afraid to ask. Transparent, nearly invisible in the water, and their sting can kill you in minutes. Oh, and they can swim faster than most people can run. In the water where people swim? Sure, you just learn to watch for them. And you carry vinegar. Vinegar. It neutralizes the toxin. Kind of. Sometimes. Look, the point is, you adapt. Humans are really good at adapting. Dr. Xylara was beginning to realize that this wasn't a case of trauma suppression or psychological defense mechanisms. This was something far more disturbing. Ryan Mitchell was completely, genuinely okay with living in conditions that would drive most sapient species insane. Mr. Mitchell, I need to ask you about something specific. In your file, there's a note about an incident involving what the rescue team called casual interaction with lethal fauna. Can you explain that? Ryan's face lit up. Oh, you mean Steve? Steve? Yeah, I named him Steve. He was this big saltwater crocodile, about 6 meters long, probably weighed close to a ton. Beautiful animal. And you interacted, be muddlemate with this creature? Well, I was fishing in his territory, so I figured it was only polite to let him know I wasn't there to cause trouble. We kind of had an understanding. An understanding with a 6-meter predator. Sure. I'd fish from the north bank, he'd stay on the south side, and we'd both mind our own business. Worked out pretty well for both of us. The rescue team's report says they found you, talking to it. Well, Yeah, it's rude not to greet your neighbors. Xylara's hands were shaking now as she tried to take notes. Your neighbors. Steve was there first. Like I said, it's his territory. I was just visiting. You were visiting the territory of a 6-meter aquatic predator. Best fishing spot for 100 kilometers. Steve knew what he was about. That's when Dr. Xylara realized she was in trouble. Not just professional trouble, although having a complete psychological breakdown during a therapy session would definitely impact her career, but actual existential trouble. Her worldview, carefully constructed over 3 centuries of treating trauma victims, was crumbling in the face of Ryan Mitchell's casual relationship with lethal reality. Mr. Mitchell, she said, her voice slightly higher than usual, I think I need to understand something fundamental about human psychology. How do your people cope with living in such a dangerous environment? Cope? Ryan looked genuinely puzzled. Doc, I don't think you're getting it. Earth isn't dangerous. Earth is home. But you just described I described Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, if it was a particularly interesting week. Xylara's skin was now a shade of red that indicated extreme psychological distress. But the constant threat of death. Doc, can I tell you something? Please. Every place has its challenges. I bet your homeworld has its own issues. We have weather management systems, ecological balance protocols. Our most dangerous predator was domesticated 5,000 years ago. That sounds nice. But here's the thing. Because Earth is the way it is, humans got really, really good at dealing with problems. You know what we call it when someone can stay calm in a crisis, adapt to changing conditions, and keep going when everything's falling apart? What? Tuesday. And that's when Dr. Xylara Keth'ven, premier trauma specialist of the Galactic Medical Federation, began to understand that she wasn't treating a damaged victim of a hostile world. She was looking at the end product of a planet that had spent millions of years creating the ultimate survivor. Mr. Mitchell, she said carefully, what would you say is the most dangerous thing about humans? Ryan considered this seriously. Probably that we don't know when to quit. I'm sorry? Yeah, most species. When they hit something they can't handle, they back off, right? Find another way, avoid the problem, adapt around it. Humans, we tend to keep poking at things until we figure them out or they kill us. And if they kill you, then the next human tries something different. Xylara's empathic senses were being overwhelmed by a combination of admiration and absolute terror. Mr. Mitchell, I think I need to end our session here. Did I say something wrong? No, you said everything exactly right. That's the problem.